Now we join Jon Snow and Sue Turton for the Channel 4 News and Sport.
Amid a crisis meeting in Switzerland, now Norway adds to the catalogue of Olympic corruption allegations. Good evening. Top Olympic officials are supposed to be meeting today to decide the fate of corrupt colleagues in the awarding of the Winter Games to Salt Lake City. But tonight, Australia's successful bid for next year's Games and Norway's successful bid from 5 years ago have both added to their corruption woes. Also tonight, after their ordeal, the beach. As a suspect remains in custody, the two rescued schoolgirls taste their first sea air. And Monica has to testify again. A judge orders Lewinsky to answer questions from Republicans desperate to stiffen their case against Clinton.
The top sports headlines: Kevin Keegan's Fulham put Premiership Aston Villa out of the FA Cup. And fury from Sri Lanka as their star bowler Matthiam Mullaritharan is accused of throwing.
Bribery and corruption on a grand scale, it could hardly be further from the Olympic ideal, and now the scandal is widening. International officials have been meeting all day in Lausanne to investigate the bribery allegations. First Salt Lake City, then Sydney, now Lillehammer, host of the 1994 Winter Games, have been drawn into the loop. A few minutes ago, Turkey said it was asked for kickbacks too. Where will it end? Sue?
Well, for now, they're focusing on the Salt Lake City scandal. The IOC's promised to sack anyone found guilty of misconduct and to clean up the bidding process for future games.
The IOC headquarters are usually open to journalists, but not today. Tight security was on hand to give the investigators absolute privacy. They wouldn't even confirm the names of those who were under cross-examination.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Only the Salt Lake City bid is under the microscope. Members are being questioned about allegations of cash bribes, scholarships, even sexual favours used to secure that bid. Their fate may now be sealed, but now it's President Juan Antonio Samaranch who's fighting to stay in office.
You don't lose a president who's brought you through good times, and then when you go through for difficult times, say we'll do something else. If ever we need a good president and an experienced president, we need it now.
But should this investigation be looking a lot further afield? In Australia, the Olympic Committee President John Coates today admitted he'd given $70,000 to two African members the night before Sydney won the 2000 bid by 2 votes. He claims it was to pay for African sports facilities.
I would sit down one-on with the IOC member. You've heard what we're doing for your National Olympic Committee. Do we have your support? Will you vote for us? And if they'd and ah, I'd say, well, is there anything more we can do for your National Olympic Committee to get your support?
Coates has claimed that the Manchester and Beijing bid committees, the other contenders for the 2000 Games, played by the same rules. A claim those involved in the Manchester bid deny, but they do admit to knowing such behaviour was going on.
We made a point of saying that we were the clean bid. There were a couple of examples where people, in a very mannered way, effectively asked us for money. One man claimed he'd had $20,000 stolen out of his hotel bedroom. When we said, well, yeah, we'll call the police then, he didn't want to know, he just wanted his money replacing. And it was just a cute way of asking for a bribe.
With the Swiss town of Sion announced as the frontrunners for the next round of bidding for the 2006 Winter Games, the pressure is on to clean up the process before these bids are decided in June.
We'll be talking to Kevin Gosper of the IOC live from Lausanne later in the programme. Well, they looked happy to be home and showed it too, as Lisa Hudlis and Charlotte Lunnan enjoyed their first day at home after their 3-day ordeal. Police in Eastbourne are still questioning a 46-year-old man about their alleged abduction. But for the girls, the little matter of a photo call, as Peter Wilson reports.
Lisa Hudlis and Charlene Lunnan, perhaps Britain's best-known pair of best friends, had a photo call today after going missing for 3 days. It was the first time Lisa had talked publicly since the girls vanished on Tuesday morning as they walked to school.
I was cuddling on my mum and dad and had a little chat and then I had a nice hot shower.
It's thought they were found after a police surveillance operation on a flat in Eastbourne yesterday, 15 miles away from their homes in Hastings.
Lisa, what was the first thing you did when you saw your parents?
Oh, I went over and cuddled them so much.
What was it like to see them again?
Fantastic, brilliant.
There's still great concern from police over the nature of the girls' experiences while away from home. Neither girl has yet faced any in-depth questioning from detectives. At age 10, the main concern is to get them back to normal life as soon as possible. But both will face a detailed debrief by specially trained police over the next few weeks.
Peter Wilson reporting. It's glossy, it costs £4 million, but will it do the job? Tony Blair has launched the most expensive advertising campaign yet to attract more nurses into the profession. Mr. Blair admitted the severe recruitment shortage was putting the NHS under immense strain, but nursing leaders say the most important incentive is higher pay. Relatives of the 5 Britons still being held on terrorism charges in Yemen are hoping to fly out and visit them next week. The men's lawyer was allowed to see them today for the first time. He said all the suspects were well and his talks had been very successful. Now, the countryside came to the city today as thousands of pig farmers marched through central London. The farmers claim their industry is on the verge of collapse. They're blaming cheap imports, which don't have to match British animal welfare standards, for the dramatic fall in their incomes.
We're very, very capable of feeding this nation. It's part of what we believe in, it's part of what I came into the industry for. But if you don't listen to this message, then for certainty in a few months' time, you are going to be feeding us, because we'll be collecting the income support, we'll be collecting the Social Security.
Well, no, they haven't given up yet. Bill Clinton's Republican accusers today dragged Monica Lewinsky back to the centre of the impeachment process. They've won a court order today allowing them to interview her about her relationship with the president. With the latest, over to David Smith in Washington.
You know, John, just when it seemed that we might see a stampede for the exit door here, among some senators at least, well, enter stage right today. Kenneth Starr, remember him, the not-so-independent counsel. Mr. Starr has now gone back to court last night and again this morning to persuade a judge to let him and the House prosecutors talk to Monica Lewinsky. Their thought, apparently, that Monica is the one wild card who could still bring down the president. Desperate stuff, maybe, but immediately today, John, we're seeing verbal fisticuffs. The Democrats accusing the Republicans now of betrayal. Everybody, John, back in their trenches. So once again, how independent the independent counsel, because Mr. Starr, fairly brazenly, has done the bidding of House Republicans here. And got a ruling quietly from a judge today that means Monica Lewinsky, in theory, can talk to him and the House prosecutors about what she might tell the Senate if she became a witness. This morning, the President's lawyers in the Senate accused the prosecutors and Mr. Starr of shamelessly blackmailing Ms. Lewinsky behind everyone's back.
To threaten Ms. Lewinsky with jail, to threaten her with violation of her immunity agreement and opening up the prospect of prosecution if they do not meet in a friendly little conversation, just say hello, just like to meet you, gathering with the managers.
Those impeachment managers insisting in reply that this was just innocent preparation for witnesses.
We don't think that what we wanted to do to talk to Ms. Lewinsky had anything to do with the rules that you've passed. We do not want to violate those rules, and we don't think that we have.
But the atmosphere has now been seriously poisoned, and all this just before a vote on Monday to dismiss the case or not.
I think it shows an act of sheer desperation on their part.
Democrats see desperate measures from desperate people. Republicans today, however, are replying that they will hold the line and defeat that motion to dismiss.
So this is hard. People are tired. There are things people would like to get on with, but this is America's business. This is the constitutional business.
It's a sure sign of where it could all be going now that in the past few minutes we've been hearing the kind of fury from jurors in the Senate that has been largely absent from this trial so far.
It is a clear demonstration that this case ought to be dismissed. It is certainly a clear demonstration that if we go down this path, you're going to see raw partisanship continually displayed throughout the next several days or weeks.
Clearly, John, the battle lines are being drawn anew.
Now, David, does this mean that we will actually see these Republicans in whatever arena they decide to choose, actually interviewing Ms. Lewinsky on television?
No, it doesn't, John. The possibility, obviously, of Monica Lewinsky that this process now takes over and that she does become a witness, clearly that has to be a possibility now. But initially, it's going to be behind closed doors, and then there's going to be an argument, if she does come before the Senate, whether the Republicans are going to allow that to be live on television in front of the nation. But, you know, I think the big picture is today, John, that in this kind of poisoned atmosphere now, it's increasingly becoming inconceivable that there are going to be the votes there to convict Bill Clinton, and that's really the big picture of what's going on here, because after these kind of shenanigans, I just can't see Democrats defecting.
Well, the first hurdle, obviously, is the question of whether witnesses do get called. Are there any Republicans likely to defect away from the Republican majority that wants witnesses?
Oh, there are clearly Republicans who are thinking about this, but the question now is that whether the party will impose, I suppose, the equivalent of a line whip come Monday when we vote first on to dismiss the case and then witnesses, whether those Republicans will be brought into line simply because this is now a partisan piece of theatre.
David Smith, Monday obviously an important day. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be reporting on that on Monday. Now, the Sri Lankans are furious. Their star players' bowling action in question once again. With that and all the sport, here's Sue.
Yes, more on that cricket row in a moment, but first the finest moment yet for the strange alliance of Kevin Keegan and Mohammed Al Fayed. Their second division team have beaten Aston Villa in what must surely be the biggest upset of this year's FA Cup. Aston Villa 0, Fulham 2 was how it ended. Simon Morgan and Steve Hayward the scorers. No wonder he looks happy. In 18 months, Kevin Keegan has taken Fulham into the 5th round for the first time in 24 years. In today's Premiership clash at Selhurst Park, Wimbledon's Robbie Earle hooked the ball over his shoulder to score the opening goal. But David Ginola, avoiding controversy this week, equalised with a great shot from outside the box. 1-1 the final score. Wimbledon and Tottenham meet again for the replay on Tuesday, the 2nd of February. Elsewhere in the FA Cup, Barnsley beat Bournemouth 3-1. Blackburn put out Peter Reid's Sunderland 1-0. Second Division Bristol Rovers beat Leyton Orient, and Everton saw off Ipswich. In today's other Premiership clash, Coventry beat Leicester 3-0 and Alan Shearer scored for Newcastle in their 3-0 victory over Bradford. Leeds beat struggling Portsmouth by 5-1. Wednesday beat Stockport, Swansea were defeated by Derby County, and Wrexham and Huddersfield drew and will meet again on the 3rd. In the third round replay, Notts County were beaten 4-3 by Sheffield United. Now in Scotland, there was also a massive cup upset. Second Division Livingston beat Premier League giants Aberdeen 1-0. Elsewhere in the third round of the Scottish FA Cup, Celtic beat Airdrie 3-1 and Rangers won 2-0 against Stenhousemuir. Rangers denied a real celebration for the third division club's veteran defender Graham Armstrong, who was playing his 1,000th senior game today after a 25-year career. And Channel 4's Italian match tomorrow afternoon is Bologna against Milan. On to cricket, and the Sri Lankan team are threatening to pull out of their tour of Australia after Muttiah